This conference will now be recorded.
It's 8:58.
Yeah, I guess we can hang on a minute.
They are 2 minutes.
So Britt has been working since the meeting Thursday to get this report together. So she's just finishing up some stuff and she'll, in a few minutes, bring down what she's got.
Perfect.
So I know we won't have any time to preview it, but
Paper copies, of course.
yes.
I rest my case.
I brought it last time, I just don't, I can write notes on these. Emily's summary is so good, you know what? You talk about an acronym-filled sheet.
Yes, exactly.
There are very few words here.
Yeah, this is the first thing I noticed as I was going through, like, TR,
Right.
DR.
And there's no key.
Yeah, there's no.
You guys figure it out, okay?
That's one thing we teach kids. If we have a map, we have to have a key as well.
Well, isn't it the first time you do it, you spell it all out and then in parentheses you put.
Yeah.
Don't
Next
start.
time.
Don't start, please,
Don't have to go with a professional.
Please.
She's got on
please.
All right, everybody, we might as well start. We might as well start with the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this marks our 5th get-together. And certainly, even though we've said thanks by email, public thanks to Emily for categorizing all of this in a great listing that we can all understand. One quick question I had, because there is a cap or a potential cap in town residential and rural countryside, we don't have to change the zoning of Deerwood, correct?
No, we do.
We do.
I think this spoke a little bit incorrectly. The cap applies to rural countryside, but a town residential is a non-compatible district.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay,
that's the need for the zoning.
okay.
So, yeah, the town residential and the village residential are not compatible.
So I'm gonna assume the first thing we want to tackle is this 4-day permit and try to come up with a decision for 14-day or less.
I was like, we have a new one? I'm
I
like,
was gonna say, you can do it for 4 days, just that,
Yeah.
No, we need to know which 4 days.
Want to know every single more than the 4 days.
Yeah, Rick had a good breakdown, because most of them were in, well, not most of them. Do you have that?
PD.
Yeah, I can look it up on
Yeah,
email.
8 are in PD, 8 town residential. 2 rural countryside and 1 each gateway, north and south.
I have it right here if you want it.
The problem, not as the problem, I'm just gonna say when we're talking about fees, so like, the reason why it was free was because they're making a minimal amount of money.
Right.
And so now if we raise our fees, some of these places who might really only rent for 2 weeks are maybe paying like 1 entire week in a rental fee.
Yeah.
And the permit fee, sorry.
So-
But I don't think we have any other choice but to handle it uniformly.
Right.
If we don't do it uniformly, it falls back on Mike and Darcy to verify their days.
I thought the same thing as far as what, all of a sudden, like I said, 1 week is wiped out, but still.
Yeah.
But it gives, as Mike pointed out, they can always do one more week.
Yeah, because they're not limited to
And
14 days.
yeah, they can say, okay, we've done it for 14 days, because that's worked out. Now, we run the numbers, we gotta do it for 1 more week or another half a week or whatever it is, and they have the
For a
ability to
weekend.
do it. Yeah, for a weekend.
That seems reasonable.
We'll just stay away another weekend, long weekend.
My original thought was hit them with the lowest amount of permit fee, but you can't do that.
Yeah, 'cause
Because
it'd
now
be
you're
different.
deviated
But
from.
yeah, then going back to separating them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is complicated, that's what came up in the village, it's like, we have different parking permits, like STR parking permits, just general, and they have different costs. So would that be too confusing? I think
Yeah, I think it would be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So their option is they can maintain a permit, but now they're not limited to 14 days.
And I think some people, and I can't obviously speak for anybody, any homeowners, but I think some people go away, let's say they go away for 14 days, and they just say, hey, my house is empty, I'm gonna rent it. Not looking at, well, I wanna recoup X number of dollars, they just say, I'm just gonna rent it.
Yeah.
So whatever percentage, we'll just do it anyway, whether they, and then just pay a little bit extra for a permit.
That's just the sting of it being mostly like, oh, maybe the locals, and then you want to, but I think the trade-off would be they can choose another week.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So logistically, we are eliminating a 14-day or less,
Right.
and you're either permitted or you're not.
Well,
Yeah.
you're either exempt or capped, so
Right.
we have 7 or 8 types of permits right now, we're going to 2,
Right.
exempt, capped. That's what I named them. It's really creative in my names.
Listen,
Well, there's
I
certain
don't know,
things that makes in this report.
There is a non-compatible.
okay. So we covered that topic. One more point I feel like I should make, and it applies to planned developments again. Even though we recognize there is the potential for many more permits in this area, I think it's very important for the public to know that that growth, if you will, really falls on these homeowner associations. For instance, let's take Brook Hill. There's 22 units in there. Currently, I think there are like 7 out of those 22 that have permits to rent. It is limited by their parking because they have a certain number of parking. So it's a situation where the homeowners are gonna have to say to some of their residents, I'm sorry, you can't have a permit because you have a 3-bedroom place and it takes 3 parking spaces and you only have 1.5 as an owner. So their overflow parking can't accommodate the whole place to have permits unless they're able to work with Mark Sperling, for instance, and an overflow lot is designated somewhere. So
They're self-contained problems.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I just don't want the general thought that, oh, the place is gonna burst. Well, it can't burst
Right.
because there isn't the restrictions that we adhere to in our permit system to let that happen. Now, there are other problems over there, and Darcy and Mike will probably have to work with the management for all the single-family homes. They may have to create a homeowners association to make sure the guidelines are met,
If they choose to do that.
if they choose to
They
do that.
just say, well, we don't want to be short-term rentals, so we're not gonna
Right,
join a homeowners association.
Exactly.
Or create a homeowners association.
but I just think that's an important point for
Sure.
the public to understand.
May I ask, so Emily, you wrote, must demonstrate they are part of an active HOA. What would that look like?
I might rely on Darcy a little bit. We beefed up our HOA definition, right, recently, in the most recent admin changes. Like, just like not a defunct HOA, like an HOA that actually needs, because there are HOAs that don't really, like, they exist on paper. Like, there's like
Yes.
road HOAs.
Yeah.
That doesn't count.
You know,
It
what is
has to be like an active HOA that needs and has more teeth than just collecting money for a road.
Isn't it like Blueberry Hills? Don't they have a homeowners, a loose homeowners, but it's not? or
Morning, Brett.
indeed.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
You don't think we changed?
I just have to bring my cheaters out.
Thank you for spending time with
All right,
me.
Darcy's gonna read,
You're welcome.
thank you, Brett. Darcy's gonna read the revised HOA definition.
Here's a, in case anyone. Okay. Homeowners association definition, a community association other than a condominium association, which is organized in the development in which individual owners share common interest in open space and or common facilities.
So it's more than just a road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they were looking at that, you would check those boxes
Yeah.
in theory.
And we do have a definition for condominium association too, so.
And I don't think it asks for it now, but you could ask our permit system for them to upload like their covenants and like their document, their HOA document. Or at least reference, how about at least reference what you want, I mean, you're not gonna look at it, it's just gonna be something that they like actually pulled from a file and put into their application.
We
Or-
kind of did it with the parking for all of the condo associations. They came up with one plan, so every single unit in there didn't have to keep repeating the same thing, we have that plan.
Okay.
So we know it's all mapped
So
out. So I
maybe-
think the same kind of,
Or maybe it's naming the HOA.
Yeah,
Because at
yes.
Whitefish Club, there's like 15, maybe there's not that many. There's a lot of HOAs, like that, like each condo association has their own HOA.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just
yes,
referencing,
identifying which one
identifying
it
what
is.
one they're part of.
Okay.
And like similar to all the other stuff, there's an affidavit that you're swearing that you are a part of it.
Okay.
I have one addition for our new first category, Gateway Corridor.
Yeah.
Under the last one, 39 Wolf Pond Way.
Yeah.
Add 43 Wolf Pond Way. Unless the renewal just came up and it wasn't recently paid. I can't verify on that, but I know the house is for sale and that permit will go away at the time of sale in September.
And it's off the main corridor, right?
That's right.
You said it'll disappear.
Yes.
Now, with the HOAs, if you recall the letter we received from the individual in the Balsams,
Yes.
where the HOA, if I recollect correctly, if the HOA does not have a quorum because of the number of short-term rentals are in there, and they're not showing up for the HOA meetings, is that an issue?
That's a good question.
Or is that just out of our, we really can't govern
I mean, and then
HOAs?
our rules would apply, like the same nuisance and 24-hour contact and all those, all of our rules still apply.
They still apply, okay,
It's just that usually HOAs, especially in condos and condos, have more strict.
That's
right.
And there's like someone actually on site making sure that people aren't parking in their own spot and that no one is loud. And there's usually like a maintenance kind of governance person
Okay.
who's
Thank you.
around.
So you're saying at the very minimum, if it gets chaotic,
Comes
there
back.
Comes
are,
back to us.
yeah, but there's more,
Then we can go back to the HOA and say, hey, you got, this average HOA, the next set of buildings.
Yeah.
We don't have to do anything because they're taking care of things above and beyond what we want. Do you want us to take care of it?
But to Rick's point, if you have more STR owners on the HOA board, they're
Right.
not gonna want to regulate themselves.
Yeah.
Right, so
well,
then
we're straight.
we're just banking on the fact that they are more restrictive.
That's it, yeah. And if there's that two associations that say that are not playing ball, it's us.
Yeah, I think your comment was perfect. Do you want us to help? We can help if we need to. We can.
No.
We don't. I don't know if
You don't
to.
want us to help, but you want us to help.
We can.
Tell me again what designation Deerwood is going to.
Town residential.
TR.
Okay,
Is this going to happen independent of the implementation of this law? Or are we just going to do it?
At the same
We're
time,
doing it
I
at the same
assume.
time, but it'll
But it won't
probably,
be in
it
this.
probably should be its own standalone law, otherwise it would be folded into the short-term rental law, so maybe there's local law number 3 and local law number 4.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say
Maybe
we
we
want
deal
to
with
separate.
number 3 and then the local office would be number 4.
I don't know if that's the right number, but
I hear you.
where are we on local laws this year? 7.
Okay, so
There's a lot of Democrats, all we do is just make more laws. Just kidding.
can we talk about our cat number?
What, are you
So
trying to
we-
add these, are you trying to add them?
Yeah.
Your Dutchess County number.
Give us about a minute and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, give us a minute and a half.
Okay, without knowing the number though, this is where I was going with the question. Depending on what we set it at, should we consider the few people that have come in front of us for variances, for permits, or is it moot?
No, I think that's a moot point. They're back in, like, they were denied. They can apply for a permit on the same grounds as everyone else.
Okay, well, I just,
But if there isn't if we cap and they're above the threshold, then they go onto the waiting list. Is that what?
Yeah,
Right.
well, one of them is in town residential, so they can't even get on the waiting list.
Okay.
The other one is in,
is
they're
that,
both in town residential.
that's Whiteface Inn Road,
And
that's
Liberty Hill.
Liberty Hills.
both town residential, okay, so it
Yeah.
takes care of itself.
So I'm a little, I do talk to Jackie, and I don't want to pull this off. So I'm a little confused. Here in the town residential, no more new unhosted, correct?
And there's
Or
no
just no more
distinction
new-
between,
There's no distinction.
No distinction, so there's no more new ones in
Town
town residential.
residential.
until we
So
hit
the
a cap.
village is weird, because they're
won't-
talking about, and I may have misheard, no new unhosted.
So the village is going to keep the two designations.
Think so.
Just asking, I mean,
Yeah,
no,
that's what it
I
sounds
talked to
like.
I would agree, that's, I mean, happy,
Okay.
we're talking that way.
This is, it was a little, it doesn't bounce as, our meetings doesn't bounce as much, so that's where I'm a little confused.
And of course, I guess to reinforce our way of talking with not recognizing hosted any longer was in hopes that if someone does convert a basement or an upper floor, it becomes
Along.
an avenue for long-term rental.
Okay.
I mean, isn't that,
Yes,
That's-
Our
thought process.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
we're not cutting out people's ability to have some sort of income producing unit in their home. It just is gonna have to be in those two districts, an income producing unit that's only rented much.
Okay.
basically what we've done is recognize a saturation point.
Okay.
Okay, so wait, you decided that you're considering that nobody can have in town residential
And village residential.
and,
Located in the town.
right, cannot apply after.
There's no new
No
permits.
new permits. No, that's it, no new permits. So once it's sold,
Yeah, I think it just hit me when you said no new permits. There actually are new permits, they're renewed, but not new.
right, not new, not,
Right.
no, somebody can't come in,
Right.
buy that, or take their existing, say, okay, now we want to go to a short-term rental. No.
And right now, the renewals are every 2
Yeah,
years.
We're
that's what it
changing it
changed.
every year.
Change that to every year,
It
right?
seems to be simplified.
Yeah, that's, I didn't
I
understand.
think that's one of the biggest, easiest things to do.
I don't want to go down that road yet. I do, but I'll wait for Derek to go down, then I'll follow. How's the addition doing over
Don't interrupt.
there? Don't interrupt an accountant.
Yeah, that's it,
Now, would this jive with this, you think?
It
should.
It should, yeah.
But it's broken out just a little bit differently.
Right.
Yeah, but
So maybe, so for the gateway corridor, these addresses are off, they don't have frontage.
Some are on and some are off.
They, right here, some are on, some are off.
Yeah, you can see on and off.
Okay, yeah.
And so the only ones, so in my opinion, if we have 206, right, so in this whole list, it should be 206. Or maybe it's 207, 204,
yeah, right.
we would count the ones take out all the ones that are exempt. So I think that's what Darcy's doing, but Gateway Corridor, you'd count out all the ones that say on the corridor, which is 1, 2,
Right.
3, 4. I think it's only 4. So that's back out 4, so then you're at 202. And then continue to go through and take out the exemptions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all of this think tank math is going on. What else are we forgetting?
We have to talk about definitions
Of,
so if you remember in the land use code committee report, in every overlay, they talked about what would be continued to be allowable, will continue to be as a conditional use, et cetera, et cetera. It mostly, well, no, I shouldn't say most of the place. But the definitions that we need to look at are bed and breakfast, rooming and boarding house, and hotel and motel. So right now, bed and breakfast is allowed in every district with the exception of definitely South Lake, Fairly Shore, North Lake. Should I not interrupt you? Pretty sure it's
sorry, I
not-
wasn't.
Yeah, that's right. So
Sound like my wife.
bed and breakfast is generally allowed everywhere, but I'm pretty sure it's not allowed in South Lake and North Lake. It's definitely not allowed in South Lake, but I would say it's probably not allowed in North Lake too. And so at some, we like batting around ideas on the land use committee of like getting rid of that definition because bed and breakfast aren't really saying.
slower.
What's that?
Talk
Slower. It's not really used anymore, right? It's kind of antiquated use of bed and breakfast. But in the end, we decided to keep it because it's in a way, which the land use code committee had recommended that we're not dealing with hosted anymore. It's another way to have a hosted rental, with an owner operator on site.
Okay, speak for a minute about what qualifies as B and B. Is it number of rooms, 2 to 5, is that?
Yeah. I'll read it to you.
Okay,
So then it goes back to maybe we need to beef up this definition of bed and breakfast, but I actually think bed and breakfast is okay. Okay, this is what it says. A residential building in which the owner or operator resides and in which rooms are offered for rent on a transient basis with breakfast typically provided to guests. Right.
okay.
It's not, but the whole idea is that it does say the owner or operator resides. So if
So
you
it's
have-
hosted.
Yes,
Yes.
but we're not dealing, so it's like a hosted rental, even though we don't have hosted rental permits anymore, but this would be totally not a short-term rental permit, it would be going to the review board and getting conditional use for a bed and breakfast. And we had talked about this a little bit before, it falls under the same conversation as hosted, because at one point it was like, well, that's just a loophole for short-term rentals to get around, because then they'll just like hire someone to live there. But the idea is, well, is that a bad thing? You know, like the thought process is like, maybe that's a good thing, because you're creating a long-term rental, because that operator is gonna have to live there. And they're gonna be taking care of all of the issues, hopefully, that might arise from having a rental. Like they're gonna be on site, making sure no one is having a party, the garbage is being taken out appropriately. So that was the rationale for keeping bed and breakfast where it is in those districts.
Well, I think the big point is you're offering breakfast.
Well, it says typically.
Typically.
Maybe we get rid of typically.
But does it really matter?
Well, I think it does.
What's that, a
because-
6-pack of donuts?
Yeah, I know,
Couple of
because you
cocktails?
can just like literally put out
It
coffee.
depends on the donuts.
I think maybe we need to beef up what it means to be an operator, or maybe what it means to that term resides. Like, maybe we need to say something like is always present when the property has guests, something along those lines to beef it up so that the understanding that you are an employee of that bed and
And this is a
breakfast.
conditional use, no fee.
No fee, conditional use. And the other thing we wanted to add to that too, and I don't know if it goes under definitions or somewhere, is that they have an occupancy tax certificate with the county.
That would be the more important one in our eyes.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that we get to see that they're paying it, but at least they took that one step. And so the county is aware that they should be collecting occupancy tax, although the county doesn't really seem to care.
No, they're part of restrictions on bed and breakfast.
So that would all be through the review board, and there's probably a standard if I went back
Yeah,
into
don't worry.
base standards. But yeah, it would say something like one parking spot per bedroom plus a parking spot per employee. And also the review board would say, what's your parking plan? Like, you have 4 bedrooms, let me see where you're parking, and how many employees do you have, where are they parking? And, you know, your operator has to live on site, or owner, like, where's the owner's suite, where's the operator's suite?
So as it concerns this effort with STR and Moratorium, this bed and breakfast, we don't even have to address that right now.
Well, I think that we should, because I think maybe we want to add a sentence or two to the definition of bed and breakfast to make it a little bit more clear that that operator or the owner is there when guests are there. You know, just like a few extra sentences that really just hammers home that you have to be there when it's rented.
Okay, so that's merely a definition change.
Yes,
Just like when we originally did host.
Yeah.
The operator or the host has to be there any evening that it's And we could say overnight, whereas before,
I think we
Without-
did change it to overnight, right?
no, we
Remember there was
didn't.
a time frame, everyone got mad about the
No,
time frame.
no, we didn't change it overnight.
We said generally present.
Generally present, or yeah, we put a time on it, but it wasn't overnight. So if we put overnight in this,
Isn't that what
That makes it
typically
more
we
restrictive.
is?
Yeah.
yeah, I
Or,
think.
or says something like.
You gotta be there when it's rented.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can hear.
For the full time, whereas for the hosted, we said you had to be there till 11 o'clock,
Right.
midnight, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we just, I really think it's just a couple sentences to make it very clear that you need to have someone who lives there. And it could be, like Mike's like, who's gonna wanna stay in a short-term rental where there's like some random guy sleeping in the bedroom? But like, that is how, like, it could really be that, like, that's how Airbnb started. And you could call yourself a bed and breakfast unless your owner operator has a bedroom on the
Right.
upstairs third floor of the house, and he's there all the time, and he knows his deal, and he's the
That
operator.
fills the gap for us eliminating hosted.
It does, in a way, but it's not,
If you want to go through the process,
yeah, it's a process.
if you want to go through the process, if you are in town residential and you want to go through the process of becoming a B&B,
Yeah.
much more restrictive, and again, the process, there you go.
That's why I don't understand the non-permitted part of it, because when you carry a permit, you prove to us that you are registered with the county.
Well, that's,
That's what I wanna
yeah,
add
that would be in there too. That would be there. You don't need a permit, again, you have to do the whole process, but in the new definition would be you have to register with the county.
Who receives that information?
The building office, or the review board,
So
depending
we're-
on where we put it.
So we're involved.
Right, oh yeah, and we have to, I mean, so we have to, when they go through the review board, they have to prove that they registered with the county.
They might not do that till
Emily?
after the review board process,
Right,
but
but they-
we could do
okay,
it
or ask
as
the
far as
question.
a building.
But but that's the thing.
Oh,
They can't
really?
hear.
You guys can't hear us? Is it the road noise? Laura?
I'll make a note sign.
Well, I only know work, was it hungry, thirsty?
Yeah, I think
Hopefully that's better, Laura.
any teeth we can give to the definition, I think is.
What's
Yeah, because now that I'm thinking about it, with hosted, the original definition was they have to be there, you have to be there overnight, but they don't have to be there until like 10 o'clock.
Well, I don't think there's a time frame on it, but I guess like to simplify it, we just need a little bit more to this definition.
Yeah.
And then maybe we wanna go even as far as to say like the owner operator resides within their own suite, so that we make sure that we're creating like quality long-term rentals,
Yeah.
not just like a
Good idea.
basement, like on the basement floor.
There's a 10 out back.
Duck underneath the pipes in the basement.
That's right, that's right, yeah.
Now, could the permit be contingent on the permit from the county?
There's no permit.
Not permit, wrong word.
It's a
The certificate?
Registration?
Yeah, it would just
Or
be
is it sort of a,
So is it the?
I'm not going to get my certificate until you give me my,
No, if it's listed as something that you need for approval, then they're gonna have to get it before.
get it beforehand? Okay, so that's,
And the
covers
only
that.
place that.
I mean,
Okay.
just to point that out though, I think in our other conversations over the last couple of years, someone could still register with the county as, I'm going to do this. That doesn't force them to actually pay anything.
It doesn't, and the
Right.
county's
It's
also
just-
not checking.
Correct.
It's more that they actually did that process, and to me, because I feel like some people might not even think of that.
Okay.
You know, because they're used to just like
Yeah.
running short-term rentals, and they
Okay.
don't, you know, so it's more to get them to think about it, like, oh, I got this certificate, I should probably be paying occupancy tax to the county. But there's no way for us to actually make sure that they are paying occupancy tax.
yeah,
Good luck with the county.
There it is. all.
Okay, I got one
He's
question.
Come on,
What's happening with planned development that's not part of an HOA?
So they would be under the cap restriction, so their number would count in the cap. And the only place that I can see bed and breakfast happening is because it is I don't wanna call it a loophole because it's legal, like, I don't wanna make it sound like it's,
rural countryside.
no, well, anywhere where there's a cap, because you can get around having a cap. and also in town residential and village residential and the non-compatible districts, because you can have bed and breakfast in those districts. You can have bed and breakfast almost anywhere with the exception of South Lake and North Lake.
Right.
But it's like a thought process, like if someone really wants to do that, they're gonna have to make some investments, like they're gonna be invested in that house, they're gonna create a long-term rental. So I don't see it as like a negative loophole, with the exception that we're not getting a short-term rental fee from them. But as
I
long as they're
keep
paying occupancy tax, that's the bigger thing, and again, I know we can't really check it, but like, we're gonna assume that they're gonna pay occupancy tax, and so
We have to make
that's
that
the bigger cash.
But they can rent by the weekend
But
What do you mean?
in a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
Sure.
per
So
night,
they're not
I guess.
permitted, so we are allowing that use with no permit.
But you can,
But they'll have a conditional use permit.
they won't have a short-term rental permit. They'll have a conditional
Right.
use permit.
What,
So then draw the line for me, what's different than hosted with an STR permit that's paying $500 a year to this guy that's gonna have a bed and breakfast and can do the same thing?
I know, so that I've definitely gone back and forth on this, and that's why, but I think, I guess I could go either way, like when I talked to the village, Jackie and Mark yesterday, I was like, I don't think you guys are wrong in the way that you're proceeding with hosted. It's more about simplification, if anything, like, so there's only two types of permits. And I think a hosted STR in people's minds is very different than a bed and breakfast. Like a bed and breakfast is a business, like you get a little sign, you have, like, you go to the review board for landscaping, for parking. It's not, it's more cumbersome.
As
than-
long as you don't think that's gonna be the escape for
escape
I
house.
do think it will be the escape for some,
some.
but they're gonna be creating a long-term rental.
So the purpose of,
And it would be like one house, right? It would be a larger house with multiple rooms in theory.
in theory, but it's also, okay, we want to, town residential and village residential, we want to create long-term rental. This is a way to do it.
But
It's
a
going to be a
bed,
smaller way.
but a bed and breakfast designation doesn't state long-term rental.
No, it
That's-
doesn't, but by having an operator, if it's an operator.
It's creating that one spot for a long-term.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Derek, you're right that it's really not that different than saying like a hosted STR could have an operator. It's not that different. And so it's like a discussion we can have, but it was more about, for me, about simplifying the permit process. And then also, I feel like bed and breakfast does have more oversight. Like there's more control from the review board.
Sure.
Okay,
Just
I'm
Department of
okay
Health.
with
And
that.
a big effort as opposed to just somebody saying, well, I bought a house, I'm going to rent it short term. Now they've got to go through all this process.
So-
And many won't.
So let's,
Oh, yeah.
The vast majority will not.
Would the BOE, Board of Health, be involved in that component, since it is a bed and breakfast?
There's a number.
Depends on the number of people,
Yeah, there's a trigger.
11,
11.
yeah.
So
So if
it's
it's under,
smaller,
then they,
they can circumvent that.
so let's paint this scenario so everybody understands it. An investor can come to town. He can buy a single-family residence, has 2 floors. The bottom floor, he puts a long-term resident in there, and their job is to manage the upstairs, which has 2 bedrooms, and it becomes short-term rental. How is that perceived?
It becomes bed and breakfast.
Uh-oh.
And
It's
which-
It's not, that's the point. It's not, by definition, it's not a short-term rental.
Okay,
No, I
It's
understand.
the exact same thing.
It's
It is.
weird.
It is.
Yeah, it's weird.
But there's additional oversight by the review board. Yeah, and.
we've gained a long-term rental.
Can we-
That's it. That's kind of the bottom line.
The bottom line, yeah. And like I said, I'm not saying people aren't going to do it, but the people are buying up properties, as we know, and the public is aware of it, just to create short-term rentals.
Right.
Which is easy, per se.
Right.
This is not easy.
So what would be our escape valve if we see that in the future that this would be, like, it seems to be kind of trending in that direction where people are utilizing that to get around?
I don't see it being overly aggressive, because what it does, it takes that property out of the use of an investor. So they don't even get to come here on the weekend unless they eliminate a short-term rental for 2 weeks and stay upstairs or whatever. So it will be certainly less frequent than
Yeah.
what the normal investment thing is now.
And I'm not gonna bog down this conversation because I bogged down the village one unnecessarily yesterday. What would be the threshold if we were to say, once we pass this, what number of B&Bs would pop up in the town that we say, hey, this seems to be, people really,
I think it's gonna be self-regulating.
do you think so?
Will you find enough people? Again, we go back to compliance.
Yeah.
If we have a compliance officer, and I don't know if B&Bs would be out of their jurisdiction or not, but will you find enough live-in hosts, so to speak,
Yeah.
to be able to operate?
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Like anything, like any, it's a business, like any other business, or, where are you gonna find your employees?
Sure. I think those are all the other options.
So hopefully that's a pretty good.
Yeah, but-
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's by
and-
far the biggest.
And there's no, I mean, obviously, B&Bs used to be a big thing. I think they're less of a thing,
Yes.
much less of a thing. So if all of a sudden 10 owners decide to take the loophole, which I just use that term
So we
loosely.
should find a different word.
Take that, and you're not gonna find it because people would rather just come and stay in a straight STR. That's the
B&B,
point.
you're in with other people.
We don't need somebody there to serve us breakfast.
Who gets,
So it's more of a, we'll wait and see if it becomes a problem, then address
Yeah,
it.
Exactly.
I mean, you never know, but I'm not saying over the next couple of years, 1 or 2 or 3 aren't gonna pop up in the town,
Yeah.
but that's not a bad thing.
who gets assigned to rewrite this definition?
First is the definition person.
I'll ask Tim Smith as well.
Tim Smith. That's-
Okay,
What other definition you like?
So I gotta steal this back, sorry. Definition of hotel motel is very weak, which is why we have seen all of these places in Village Center and Gateway Corridor apply the reword to be hotels and motels to skirt, that is total skirting of the
Yes.
STR law. So currently it says,
This is what's the winds or whatever.
East wind?
East wind.
no, Eastern really is a hotel.
That is all.
I'm talking about like you have to do this, but she has every right to do it, she's not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's just, we should revise our definition.
Okay.
And,
onboarding,
no, this is on hotels.
hotels, okay.
There's like 4 or 5 hotels that have come into play since the creation of the short-term rental law, so that they are not part of the short-term
Is this
rental
down here?
restriction. No, there's one on Station Street.
Oh, okay.
And is it guided by
There's one on
number
Main
of rooms?
Street. It's not, which is why it should be.
So what do you think?
12 is definition, or I think 10 is definition.
Yeah, 10.
All right, hotel motel, a building or group of buildings where overnight transient guests are lodged for remuneration and designed primarily to accommodate the motoring public. A hotel motel may offer additional ancillary services such as restaurants, meeting rooms, recreational facilities, and laundry services. So the land use code committee recommended a change that it says a minimum of 5 units.
Okay.
And at one point Darcy had some more to add to that definition, like 2 years ago. I don't know if you want to look back at that and see if there's still more you want to add.
Yeah, I think, didn't it have something about commercial, and I've got it up in notes.
Okay. Just so that we don't have all these like they're like stores that are becoming a village problem. It is a village problem, it's not necessarily a town problem. We do have some Gateway Corridor and Old Military, there's not much else.
Where there's room for growth.
Yeah,
Like the business, like Simply Gourmet or the gym, those sort of
yeah.
storefront-ish type situation.
So with a minimum 5 units, does it affect many at this current time? Or
Well,
is there a grandfather clause you're thinking
yeah,
of?
you can't go back and say, we took away your hotel motel.
Right.
Or we're taking away your hotel motel. So it'd just be going forward. And the only reason would be so that people weren't just applying for hotel motel permits instead of conditional uses instead of short-term rental permits. Because, so like, again, but unlike bed and breakfast, right, hotel motel doesn't say anything about like an owner or operator is there. So they're really just like apartment buildings that they're saying are hotels.
And so let's take it further, what's proposed?
To say 5 units, has to be 5 units.
Yep,
And also Darcy had some other language that she's gonna look back to. Because
So
she
what's
wanted
the-
to change it a couple years ago.
What's the definition of a unit, a bedroom?
Unit probably doesn't have a definition.
I mean, but what, you know, I mean, you could
Bedroom
have,
probably has a definition.
Dwelling unit, there might be a
'Cause you could have-
definition for that.
you could have a 5-bedroom house and,
Dwelling unit is defined as a building or portion thereof providing complete housekeeping facilities for one family, including living, sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities.
okay, so it couldn't be a 5-bedroom house because not each unit has all that.
No, but at this point, it could be a one room hotel. Like a single
Right,
family.
right,
home
no,
on
no, that's what I'm
quarter.
saying.
Yeah.
No, by saying 5 units, that's fine. But if you, with that definition of a unit, you know, because, I mean, nobody's gonna take a 5-bedroom house and put all that into each bedroom.
Yeah.
Except what hotel really,
It's cooking.
yeah, I mean, cooking, so you need a full,
Microwave.
you need a full bathroom, a full bedroom, and a complete kitchen is a dwelling unit. So, I mean, hotels don't have really that either.
Right.
So,
So, not a stove, but I've seen some that have microwave water.
Yeah, that's exactly.
But I guess we just want to point out that that definition needs to be
yeah,
beefed up as well.
My basis behind the question was, is 5 an appropriate number? And with that definition, I think 5 is fine. Yeah.
so that's the second definition you've got.
Means definition.
Do you
Third one
have
is
your
what?
numbers? Looks like you have a lot of charts there.
But Dean's not here, so he didn't mess with the microphones, he probably wasn't ready.
Yeah, my other definition, so do you remember, because everyone remembers so well, in 2019, the whole rooming and boarding house, so one of in our base standards, one of the other things that's allowed in almost every district is rooming and boarding house. And this was the scapegoat that people were trying to use before the short-term rental law went into effect. One person got in, one person didn't. And so then in our short-term rental law, it says rooming and boarding house is taken out of base districts with the exception of the 3 little C commercial districts, Village Center, Gateway Corridor, Old Military. So that definition still existed within those 3 corridors, but then we revised the definition to say that it had to be owner occupied. It's just like, to me, it's like, it's just confusing things, like, so let's just get rid of the definition. Who's coming to the review board for a rooming and boarding house application?
Didn't we cover those same aspects with a new definition in B&B?
Yeah, so like, why have 2 of the same thing?
Yeah, we
Exactly.
don't need
So
to.
I think we should just get rid of rooming and boarding house.
And only go with the,
And hotel, and short-term rental.
okay.
Darcy, you got a look on your face.
no,
Oh,
just, that's like 2 years ago conversation, so I'm thinking.
She's
I mean,
3 thoughts ahead of us. too.
Initially, I think that makes sense.
There might be some reason that I
I know.
can remember like why we did it that way, but right now I don't remember why we did that.
I don't really either.
Can I put that on Darcy's charge to go over that?
Yeah, we'll look at that again.
So these are all like amendments that are kind of on the side of our STR direction.
Like house cleaning types.
Yeah, they're like administrative amendments.
Yeah, which can be part of our STR
Yes.
law, except for the separate one we would need
For Dearwood.
for Deerwood, yeah.
And there are some other administrative changes, which we can talk about now if we want to. But-
Let's create a
Yeah,
list because
go for it.
next week is with Mark.
Yeah.
So the couple that Darcy has more, but I might be able to reiterate a lot of them. So the biggest thing is that it now becomes a 1-year permanent permit that's renewed annually, because there's a ton of confusion on that one.
Right.
What is this topic?
Administrative changes.
Are you
That,
talking just to the STR law?
yeah. that it more clearly states that the permit number has to be listed in the ad, because right now it's this really convoluted way of saying it. It's a question for,
Can I see that
yeah,
one?
this one?
You're saying
Yeah.
the short-term rental permit number needs to be in the ad?
Yeah. I would love for Mark to invent some language that says that by mere advertising, you are saying that you're renting. We'll see if Mark can do that. Because we know there's a ton of people who still, I shouldn't say a ton, there's a handful of listings
There's a section.
that have an ad, but say that they don't have a permit, but they say that they're not renting, and they just maintain the ad so that they have that option, and they maintain their like elite host status.
Should they do that though? Like if they,
It's a question for Mark, like, we really don't have the means to say you can't do that, because they're saying that they're not renting.
I wouldn't get excited because he was pretty clear when he's.
I'm gonna figure something. Like, what if we say if you don't list a permit number, then you are having a legal rental?
Well, that's true.
I mean.
I don't think
you have to list
it's
the permit.
illegal until you actually rent it.
Yeah. Rick. Did you go to law school for a day?
Mark.
He's taking classes online. It's spare time.
But at least having like a clear permit number, and maybe even saying where it's listed, I think makes it easier for the system to pick up on the ones that don't have permit numbers.
Just having the permit number as a requirement seems reasonable, because then we can filter out.
And then I read a couple other things that I wanted to add. Sorry, my daughter's getting the vaccination. I might have to take a phone call. That we have this good neighbor pamphlet.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to take us off topic,
Okay, this is another one.
but I know these are just, when did we have scheduled conversations about fees, fines?
We can do that today.
Because it's,
Sure.
just got a little, she wasn't hammered, but it was a persistent questioning about enforcement. And there's, seems to be a very clear need to support Mike and Darcy with this, with increased
There's,
fees to be able to increase the manpower.
let's do fees first, because the second part will get convoluted a little, because our success rate on town outside village is different than the village's perception on things within. And Darcy and I have had this conversation after I talked to Art about it as well. So let's first go back to your good neighbor
I
package.
didn't know how long earlier.
They're shooting her up right now.
It's not a bad thing.
Vaccine?
So the good neighbor pamphlet, which I haven't looked at in a while, but I think it does have some really valuable information. So if within your listing, you have to have a link to the good neighbor pamphlet. So because that's like another thing that I think maybe when someone is checking out a house as a guest, they might actually look at that. Where if it's just in a folder at the house, they might not look at that. So that was one simple thing to add to the listing. And Darcy, remember the other one? Was it the maximum number of parking spaces?
Yes.
Because usually listings will have the maximum number of rooms and maximum occupancy, but they won't say how many cars can park there. So I thought that was one more good thing to add, because it might just dissuade people like, oh, we have 5 cars, but there's only 4 parking spaces. This isn't the right rental for us.
That'd be important for right across from Dick's house.
Yeah, I'm thinking like picturing the pictures that come out the last few weeks, please.
What do you mean? Are they taking up your driveway? You can only put 3 cars in it? Not 7?
Dick's renting.
Like the Milan Fair.
That's right.
Is that what you were thinking?
He's got lines on his lawn.
Yeah, that's right. You
Right?
Those are both good points, but those are in-house that we put in the permit.
Yes, but I
application.
think it needs to be in the law, because people will push back and say, I'm not required to put that in my listing.
Okay,
So it needs to be in the law.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the thing, because, I mean, Patty looks at it more than I do. People show up all together. I mean, you see 3 cars pull in across the street. One person gets out, one person gets out, one person. And sometimes you can tell where they're from by looking at the plates or what's on it. And you know, you can tell they're all neighbors.
And they're all parking on the street, mind you.
Yeah.
And the driveway on the side and around, like,
That's right.
wow.
Whereas if they, like you said, if they said, well, we're at carpool. I mean, ahead of time they would.
Maybe people won't care, but at the same time, it's just one more piece of
Oh, no.
information that they can have there.
Yeah, I think some people,
To make it
because I've seen
more
many
decision.
people, when you've got a lot of cars there, particularly in the bottom lot, let's say the front three, they never move.
Yeah.
They never move. So people, it's, you know, that they live near each other, they would carpool.
Okay. Anything else administratively?
Do we want to change, isn't there something about parking that you wanted to change?
Right, I don't feel like the required off-street parking is worded clearly enough. If the intention really is you must have, is it that you must have, or the maximum that you can have is 1 car per bedroom? And you must have that as well?
Yeah, so it's like a max and a min.
Right, so I just think that can be worded more clearly.
I see what you're saying.
And I do remember a little bit of that, we went back and forth because we were like, we were worried about people having too few parking spaces, but then we were like, well, we don't want people having 8 cars for 3 bedrooms.
Right,
The parking on the street.
Yeah.
Or it was more like, why would you need 8 cars for 3 bedrooms? And because at first we were just doing like, a max.
and so I think, I mean, we've heard it a lot. Somebody has 3 bedrooms, let's say it's one of the condos, they have 3 bedrooms, but they technically only have 2 spaces assigned to them. They might have some kind of overflow parking where they can park, but is like, what, should they not be then getting a permit for 3 bedrooms? They can only get a permit for 2 bedrooms, like it's a
Well, that's
little
good
vague.
question. That's a good
It's vague,
question.
so.
But they have to come up with a parking plan of some sort.
They do.
Yeah.
You know, so there's other people who say, right, I can only fit 2 cars in my driveway, and we tell people to, but sometimes they show up with 3, like, so what happens with this other car?
Yeah, and so that's, I guess, what's important to communicate in the ad, and then also that they legally can only park 2. But this is what we didn't want to say, is like, if you can only park 2, but you have 3 bedrooms, you can still rent your 3 bedrooms, it's just that you only can have 2 cars.
Right.
What you do with that, if you need that 3rd car, what you do with it is on you.
So,
But it has to be off street.
Yes, it has to be off street and legally parked.
But there's no enforcement to be able to do that.
Right.
And that was the pushback from the village, and Craig was very mad about a lot of that, but at the same time, we cannot regulate people parking on public streets.
Oh, so my suggestion at that time was having, much like Brookline in Massachusetts, if you are a year-round resident, you get a sticker in your window, so you can park on the street, whereas if you're a short-term rental, you wouldn't have that, so there would be some sort of controls on that, but it didn't seem to gain any traction.
so I have to go back to town outside village
Yeah.
and village.
Hmm.
And the fact that we aren't issuing any new permits. So what we're talking about right now is clarifying parking for existing permits.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So this is an amendment to who's already permitted it, because we're not moving forward.
Well, but in White Castle Resort and in condos and townhomes, there will be new permits.
But they are bound by their HOAs.
Right.
But they still have to provide a parking.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
which they had to get their permit.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Like,
in my mind, this is minor.
Yeah.
Well,
It
I
is
think the
more of a
example
village
might not
problem.
have translated well to the other sort of areas.
I,
get it.
to Darcy, I think she's just looking for clarification.
Yes.
That's all.
Yeah.
So what would you like to see?
Well, maybe just some better wording.
That's what I mean.
So-
So what,
So-
do you-
It'll be a lawyer.
Darcy,
Okay.
you want clear, articulated objectives
What
so
we
you
keep
can
doing,
do
we
your
keep
job
going
without
to
stress.
exceptions
Yeah.
within the village.
That
Right.
seems
Well,
reasonable.
my point is, with Darcy, she knows what she wants.
Yeah.
So just come up with something that you think it
Okay.
covers what it says, what it should say. I mean, we know what we
But
want to say.
when we make changes to this, though, it will affect people when they renew. You know what I mean? Like, if they're gonna renew, they're gonna have to update their website listing, and they're gonna have to update their park. Like, if certain things change, they are gonna have to come into compliance with this. So
Right.
it will affect permits, existing permits in town residential and village residential.
But in parking in general, we, in our permit process, had to take in actual drawings with measurements
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
for people to qualify for their permit.
Yeah.
So there is already a maximum amount of parking associated with every permit.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, have we beat that to death enough?
I think so.
Okay, let's go on
These,
fees. Again, without crossing the line into the village thoughts, I know kind of you guys have been as exaggerating as doubling fees. In the case of town outside village, I can tell you just basically, we take in basically $60,000. I think I'm
Mhm.
within $58,000 to $60,000. Once we set this cap or number, we will know where we're at. And I don't want to exaggerate fees to take in money that isn't justified by our costs.
right.
Personally, I'm firm.
We
in that.
legally can't, correct? We can't take in more than what we can
Justify.
justify, yeah.
Well, I think that, okay, there's your point, with you, one thing you just said, not justification, but to do the math, we've got to set that cap.
However, I believe our initial talks centered around, for instance, having someone like Britt or someone in the office associated with a new amount of time to watch these rentals or to watch for non-permitted rentals, for a better system of watching this STR process above and beyond what we get from Unirevs. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, so in other words, how many hours per week
Right.
for an average? Per maybe more or less given week, but an average, how many hours you're going to spend? In other words, do we hire someone to say, okay, we need a 40-hour person?
And
Or do we reallocate somebody for 20 hours a week?
basically, I can remember us talking about like 20 hours a week. It boiled down to like half a position.
Right.
It was between 20 and 25,000. In order to recoup that with 200, say we cap at 200, and the average rental fee is $500, and it varies from 200 to 900, but somehow we're going to come to a better thing. What it boils down to is bumping every permit by $100, gives us $20,000. That's just a quick, easy math thing.
With the plan set in place, do you think that would be enough? I know this is tentative, but that'd be enough of a coverage to be able to enforce it? Or is it a stepping stone to kind of get into it, see where we're at, and then maybe continue progressively adjust as we move forward?
Yeah, and I think we can crunch numbers certainly later, but that's just a really basic overview
Right,
for you
right.
to know what we would need extra.
I think on an average, my feeling is the 20 hours a week is probably a minimum. You know, we may need more. I mean, I'm not saying to hire somebody 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week, whatever, but I think 20 is a good starting point, and therefore, well.
And that'll depend upon what the village does as well.
Right.
But that, again, Art said that he had made a few comments here and there, gave you an opportunity kind of to digest it, so
Right.
there's some plans, it's just,
I think this next session, well, it's just 10 o'clock, we've got a half an hour, and I can tell you our discussion on the village's impression with what they expect out of Darcy and Mike's department, I'm guessing is a long ways from our impression of that.
yeah.
So anyway, do we want to talk about fees anymore,
The only
or?
thing I was gonna say about fees is that you said $100 across the board. I can't remember, I know that there's a structure, right, based on bedrooms, but to me, it seems more fair. Those ones that are up on I would increase, like it'd be a scaled increase.
Yeah.
The percentage.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like you
I
said something like 50%.
I just threw out 50% because I think it's more appropriate if it can be justified.
Yep.
If it can be justified,
So
I
it's
would
more
say.
of an increase up here than it is down
Right,
here.
exactly.
Now,
And oddly enough, I think what you're gonna find is the size of the homes with number of rooms in town outside village is pretty consistent, as where within the village are all those 100 places that have 8 to 12 bedrooms. So I think you're gonna find a more consistent thing, but I agree, proportionate scale is fair.
The percentage, but again, I mean, last meeting, we tabled a bunch of things, which is already taken care of. But I think that's something, we can't look at fees yet because we don't know what the village is gonna do.
I wouldn't wait on the village.
We kind of,
But we have to.
We have to.
Because
so?
if they eliminate 50% of short-term rentals in the village,
But
mean,
they,
I don't
let's
think
say,
it's
let's say
allowed
like
to-
if they do that, they're not eliminating them immediately, right?
Right.
correct.
And so we
I
would
don't-
have, we would,
No.
whatever this position is, because Darcy also said this to me, she goes, well, what they kind of like, once everyone's in compliance, what would this person do? And I was like, well, that's a good point, but at the same time, if we start having more restrictions, then maybe there's more compliance, because there's gonna be people who are trying to circumvent the rules. And I think whoever this person is, either, what roles within the, what happened within the office, and then if there's a new role outside of the office, or in addition. to the
Exactly.
office, They know that their job is contingent on fees.
Mhm.
And so if there's a huge drop in fees, then you're gonna be out of a job.
I misspoke yesterday, I was just like, I threw the number like $100,000 up, like short-term rental, obviously no one makes that. But do we have access to that? It seems invasive. Do we have access to the amount of money, revenue generated, or what?
Oh, sure.
Gross per,
The fee
GovOS.
structure?
No.
no, the gross revenue of short-term rentals. Do we have access
GovOS
to that?
produces that, but it's a guess.
I will have, you know what, if you guys want to keep talking, I'll go in and pull up Mike Diskin's treasurer's report, and I may have the occupancy tax figure right now if you want it.
And it's broken out by short-term rentals
No,
and
see
hotels.
those things right
No.
now.
Yeah, because like, just bumping it up $100, you say 50%, it seems like you have $100 permit, say $500 permit, let's just say you're making 30,000, 50,000.
whatever.
Ballparking, because I have to start doing some research. You might have some inside knowledge with Nick and Meryl Thomas having an idea. I personally don't have the knowledge inside, because there's a lot of money to be made, and it's shown that there was like 22 people, and I think they were mostly STRs, who were Skyping into a village meeting, and it seemed that they all kind of they cheered when they said $100,000. I'm throwing numbers out that the public have given me. Obviously, I need to be more informed, but
Right.
it seems that if these investment properties, they're making substantial amount of money, then the permits should be.
But
A little bit more
that's,
expensive.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but we can't substantiate that doing it.
Like, that's legally not how you set your fees.
Well, but it would tiered, like what you were saying,
Yeah,
but it would be
that's why we're
legally
okay
tiered.
with the tiered, because those bigger bedroom places are making more money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it would be tiered, but it would be an increase relative to those particular.
But I think the fees has to be set on what Darcy and Brett and Mike and everybody comes up with as much what they determine it's gonna be their increased load. And that's what we have to cover. And if that gets to the point, the thing is, if we can take a current employee somewhere and reallocate for, I'm just saying 20 hours a week, that's just increased payroll, okay?
Yeah.
If we have to hire somebody 30, 40 hours,
That's
then we throw in benefits and like that.
Yeah.
So we don't know until your department tells us, and approximately, we're not looking for, oh yeah, we're gonna spend 18.3 hours more per week. It's give us the high end, and then we structure the fee to cover that.
Is that something we could revisit a year or 2 years down?
Yeah.
That's-
Oh, of
that's
course.
what's
Oh,
nice
yeah,
about
that's the
the
thing,
annual
that's the thing. And that's it, if we decide, okay, I'm just picking a number, they need 15 hours a week, and we reallocate a current employee, we cover their payroll for 15 hours. 2 years from now, all of a sudden, something happens where we need a full-time employee,
Okay.
okay? Then we revisit it and say, okay, now we gotta do this, like this.
And we can do this with the liaisons, like our liaisons and maybe the village liaisons, because with their office, because it's gonna be a very detailed conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be done here, but, because I also think that the village has different goals for what this job would be. And the village maybe needs to like be put into like what is realistic for this person and come together on what the job description is and what their actual roles will
Are they looking at policing as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this,
That's-
us.
be. Which is
Our
kind of out of the
ideas.
realm of,
It is, and then you get into your other question, which is fines, so to speak, which also supplement or support the position.
But you can't, well, they would
But you can't-
support it, but you can't, hey, theoretically, you wouldn't find anybody.
Yeah, you can't budget, you can't
Not
budget.
theoretically, I
No,
mean,
you can't.
being optimistic, fines.
Right.
After some reflecting, what I, obviously, I believe is, up here when it comes to all of this, about like, what can I reasonably contribute, and that's what the community is like, if we talk about enforcement, whether it's fines. And if we have objective, measurable sort of circumstances that like, you violate, and then there is some actual teeth, then that's another thing. I think the public would appreciate that. The nuisance is calmed down, but that additional threat of the,
Okay,
objective measure.
Yeah, but there's just, there is, right, I mean, we're talking fees and fines. They're two different conversations.
Oh, yeah, I know, that's what I'm just saying, but it's under the umbrella of enforcement.
Oh, yeah, under the umbrella.
And I think that's what, if presenting this to the public, and if there is some teeth,
Oh, yeah.
the public will, that trade-off, I think they would appreciate it. That's.
Yeah.
I agree, the liaisons can handle that, right?
and so, Derek, you're still the liaison, right? You can-
yes.
We'll work something out for next week with the village liaisons.
As it pertains to
What this
their
position-
discrepancy with the services they get from code enforcement?
No, what they expect this new person to do.
There's some ideas been kind of batted about that, like, I didn't speak to.
Within the
because
office or outside the office? Because I think we are miles apart.
Yeah, that's why I think we need them to come in.
Okay.
I think, I had a conversation with them, I think Art has an idea.
Who was it, you and Jackie?
So it's hard, I think Jackie is probably the best person to do that. And I think she has, and Art has an idea, and I think that needs, to hear his idea and flesh it out, and that's, because the rest of the board is, waiting for his direction and what he feels is okay.
So in order to move this would be our first interaction with the village in this process. To move this along at any kind of pace, I want your opinion on whether I'd like to include Darcy and Mike in the meeting as well.
No, they're with them, and Rick,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
because I think they're gonna answer a lot of the village's questions on what you can actually do and can't do.
And Art will bounce some ideas off you, and then you can determine, because he was, I got where he was coming from, but it was a little bit.
Do you want to give me your good days and I'll work around that?
Yeah, generally any morning.
Some of theirs can be taken care of with like parking.
Yeah.
I advocate for maintaining no overnight parking on the streets year round.
Yeah.
That'll take care of.
Yeah.
And the police can ticket the cars on the street.
Just to
But
go a
the
little
town-
bit
the
farther.
village, yes, yeah, the town.
A lot of the concerns from what Art and I talked about are after hours and weekends.
Yeah.
Which changes,
The dynamic a lot.
I'm just saying, I'm not sure this will be a good get together.
That's between you and the man.
Well, to
Like,
start, it's an office job. It's not putting on a uniform and patrolling the streets.
There was some
Right.
conversation about, well, Peter brought up the needing enforcement powers, much like how Mike has. And like, it's getting a little bit more involved as it's unfolding. And I
Yeah.
see where he's going, but I think it's a conversation for
I think
you.
that's an extension of the police town.
Okay,
Yeah.
And then maybe, as much as Dick likes hearing about sidewalks, but maybe we should absorb the police department just so that.
that's
I was like,
already.
oh, Mike was feeling that one.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling that one. That was worse than the sidewalk look.
No, you don't, I agree with you.
Oh, really?
Oh, I mentioned it a year ago.
Really? I talked to Chuck though about it.
So you pick a morning, like 5 o'clock good in the morning?
I know, I like to things early. Darcy doesn't get
Mike-
to, she's always running. so
Mike
she's
and I
getting
are
some-
away.
You are away.
Next week?
No, awake.
Yeah, no, wait.
She's running.
Emily's calling me at
She's
4:30. Are you up? I
Yeah,
have some
because I
ideas.
said, you talking about 6:30, I'm like, who else are talking at 6:30? Clearly Mike.
You try talking to a 4 or 5-year-old? Like, it's not the same.
So an 8 o'clock is realistic?
Yeah.
But is it for you, Darcy?
No,
It
it's-
depends which day.
Yeah, she run, hers is 9 o'clock, because she's running.
Is 9 a good time?
Yeah.
So then I'll send out an email to Art and Jackie, and then I'll wait for you guys to pick. And I assume,
So
I should
obviously
assume.
not next Tuesday, because that's the Mark Shackner one.
Right.
do we want to, is it necessary to do it before Mark Shackner? Like as early as Friday morning?
It would be, you could have a conversation with him afterwards. That would make a lot of sense. And you could hear his ideas to see if it's even.
Well, I'd love to be able to present something if needed.
Right.
Friday morning, just 'cause
there.
it's so great, plus we got septic pump outs on Friday.
Oh, that's right, Friday, we're on the lake.
Yeah.
Okay, so
On Monday morning.
Monday I'm in the county, but I don't care if you guys meet without me.
No, you need to.
Yeah, I think you
You need to be.
they might.
Is
yeah,
there
I
any
agree with
legal
Jack.
spin-off of your meeting?
I think what the village wants to do is not maybe legal.
So
So
they
there is-
consult.
It's unique.
Should
It's
they
definitely
consult?
unique. There are components that are unique.
So you already know
Are
more
not
than me.
typical.
So, okay,
Okay, I retract my question.
no, it was a good one.
It opened things up.
Can
Jason's even
someone,
quiet.
can someone come in your place if you can't be there on
Yeah.
Monday morning?
Yeah,
Dick probably
That's
should be
that's
there.
what Dick's paid for.
Which morning?
Monday morning, 15th. Because I think there's benefit to having this done before Mark Shackner.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah, I can do Monday morning.
9 o'clock Monday morning, Darcy.
Sure.
What's your cell phone coverage from here to Elizabeth?
Oh,
Verizon.
it depends whether it's on or not.
Oh, I wish I could be like that. I'm working with my therapist on my phone addiction.
So you'll get a hold of Jackie and Art?
Yes, I'm not sure if Art's liaison, but I'll CC Art so he can choose who he wants.
Important is Jackie.
Jackie could disseminate, but I think the ideas are coming from Art. I could be wrong, but he has,
You are.
he has some concrete thoughts on it.
Thanks, Dick.
The last couple things.
Well, did Darcy, did you come up with a number?
I do, yep, so. So this is, I'll just say it, Emily, district by district, just so we're sure, right? Rural countryside, we have 29, North Lake is 8, South Lake 39, Old Military not fronting is 1, Gateway Corridor not fronting is 8, Town Residential 53, Village Residential 14, and then Planned Development not part of an HOA is 19, for a total of 171.
I'm sorry. Darcy, I missed the beginning part. What were we listing off?
So those were the different zoning districts that would be included in the cap number.
Okay.
What,
No.
it's included in the cap and plus the existing permits in town residential and village residential that we're honoring. So they're
Right,
they're
right.
wanted part of the cap number.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay, I got you. Okay, yeah, because we're,
What is that total?
171.
What were we at, 10% originally?
that was the original number. I'm not, and I've expressed this, and I talked to
We were
everyone about
actually
that topic.
thinking the other way.
Yeah, I'm not, I think that's too much to cut it.
Yeah, so thoughts realistically is 200 a safe number?
No, No, because you're only 171.
Right.
We're not working off 206. Do you want to increase, do you want to increase, do you want to increase?
So the other thing, off of Britt's list that she had, total seems to be 219.
Oh, not to this.
No, with that 206.
Right,
Okay,
so,
so we're at 219 down, okay, I got you, okay.
So there's roughly 50 permits existing in Whiteface Club and Resort that have HOAs or condos and townhomes.
And the potential
yes.
for more.
Or
Right,
on the
that's,
front end.
you're right.
So, yes,
The potential for more right now, just with the new units being built, is a minimum of 12.
Right, okay, that's right.
We're talking about Whiteface Club?
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's not the exempt.
That's not in the cap.
oh, right.
So that number doesn't need to come into play.
No, I guess I'm thinking total number with them,
Right.
but we have no way of regulating that.
So you've got 43 residential, both village and town, which will not be renewed.
No, 53 and 14.
67.
53 and 14, okay, sorry.
67.
That'll be removed.
Reading without my glasses.
And the potential for growth in our gateway corridors, it has a limited
Right.
number,
Mhm.
at least now without new development.
So what was the number you threw out, 200?
And those are only renewable in gateway corridor? Or that's the only place we can add? Where else, Emily?
Frontier and Gateway Corridor, Frontier and Military Corridor, and then Whiteface Club Resort or town homes and condominiums. So although I think, is it only the Balsams that is in the town? Am I missing one? I thought Riverbend somehow split, but the village claimed the Riverbend the other day.
wait a minute.
I think it might just, I think the only townhomes we might have that aren't part of Whiteface Club are Riverbend, or sorry,
No,
Balsams.
Balsams.
Interesting number.
Riverbend is in the village.
50% of your residential.
So the
It'd be hard to
Balsams,
even get to
is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Balsams is town.
It should be working.
So is there any other condominium or townhome development that's in the town besides the Balsams?
Yeah, because if you take that 67 out,
Yeah, or even go 50% of it will be
Yeah.
replaced in other areas.
yeah,
That's,
Would probably work.
It's
Not that I'm really.
Yeah, it seems like most condos are in the village.
if you go to 200, you're looking at a 19 reduction, correct? 19 unit reduction. Right. Put it in different terms.
But the only place we can add them are in these
Correct.
open districts,
Right.
which won't be an easy process.
no, that's the thing, I think, and
And listen, it's not like we even have to set it more. I'm only doing that so that there is a potential for some growth in the areas we've recognized as being okay.
But it is something we can revisit again each year.
yes,
And that's-
Exactly.
So it's not, like, we're just doing a jump off point, which we will reval and have some objective data to review.
The next 3-4 years, it'll probably be pretty,
right. And we can say that technically it is a reduction.
what is?
It is. It's
That's
a
what I
reduction.
wanted to point out was
Yeah, it's a reduction.
reduction of 19.
Right.
With no new
Right,
permit.
there's, like I said,
Correct.
there's a lot of room for growth, but initially,
Right, it's more reallocation than,
yeah, exactly.
We have 13 minutes. Is it worth a couple minutes of talking?
I think we should set the cap. I think
Just
we
a
should.
tentative count? Is that what you're saying?
I think we should come up with what we want.
So the public has something to respond to.
Right,
Yes.
and a lot of things we've talked about with the enforcement office and the code enforcement office depends upon that cap. So we've got to come up with a number.
And the cap is not affected by plan development, correct?
Well, our one,
One.
the other three are non-compatible.
What number do you think, Emily, would be reasonable? Like, you are in the mix and you see there's some vision, like, what would be a good jumping off point?
It's 200 in the ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's in the ballpark.
Center field or?
Yeah.
Field.
Pitcher's right at home plate, or, can we score with this or what,
Not to put any pressure on.
Which way?
So along with that number though, Emily, take this question. Our exposure in either side looking at this direction for potential lawsuit, and I know that's what we'll be talking to Mark about.
Yes.
Is there any reason we should set an actual number or let our direction be?
Well, I mean, we have to set a number because we were saying there's districts where you can't, where we're capping to a certain
Right.
number. So we
Right.
have to set a number.
And I think, every meeting we've kicked things down the road, which is, some things we've had to.
Yeah,
Okay, like, the fees and all that, we need more information. But with the cap, we don't need more information. We gotta come up with a number. And we've got 10 minutes to do it. so we
And I
can-
think that's, a cap of 200 offers, if you look at it from one angle, it's growth,
Yes,
Yeah.
because you're reducing in the residential area. If you look at it from the other angle, which is 219 compared to 200, you're reducing.
you are opening up. That's the thing, there's advantages both ways.
Correct.
Both ways you're looking at it. It's not like you're trying to say something just to cover something.
And I agree, if I had to predict, I would echo Derek, I don't think we're gonna get there.
No, I don't
We'll
think
be
so
hard
either.
pressed to get to 200,
Yeah, you don't think, like, if we go to 200, we probably won't have a wait list for
Right.
another-
probably 10 years or so. If then, because of you have to cut down on your residential,
Yeah.
which
And
means
eventually
sales.
that will, go down.
Yeah.
So just tell us, you first, then I'll say what I have to say.
I'm just trying to think through like all of like what it means to go up to 200, like where do I think they'll go? And like, do I actually think that
I'm not sure it's attainable.
to get to 200?
If there is some kind of residential growth in Raybrook, for instance, say there's half a dozen road front properties that will come up for sale, that could be, there's 6, let's even say 10. However, I do know of home sales now of 3 to 4 already, where we're gonna lose permits. But still, we have to reduce them to get below 200. We could be 3 years out, easily.
Yeah, I think we do need to promote the growth, and we need, it's the basis thing I've said all along, we need STRs, and this will allow growth.
In the
Back
areas,
to.
in the areas that,
Back to, but we do need a number. We said where we don't want that number, but we still do need that number.
I wish there were a way, now that we're close to finalizing this, that we can assess the positive effects on housing. That's not gonna be an easy thing to track.
interesting.
We all have this picture in our minds of where we're headed with all this to make things better. I'm not sure how we can assess it.
Until it actually gets implemented and sees what rubber is doing.
Who made the comment, this is an experiment?
All right?
So back to Emily, what was the number?
Come on, we gave you didn't say anything, we thought about it.
We know we're between 185 and 200.
That's right.
You need some REM sleep.
Yeah, really.
Would 200 be excessive, like 200, it was just as a jumping off point?
I don't
No,
think
it,
it's excessive.
it allows our town to have a little bit of growth
Yeah, and
in areas that we recognized as okay.
Right, because it's really not growth, it's a reduction.
Right.
we're going from, we're going from
Rate-
219
rate-
over time, 219 to 200.
Is 200 too high in your estimation?
I wouldn't want any higher than 200.
That would be the top.
So,
What's the low end?
okay, so I'll bring it out. Can
175.
we agree upon 200? A max of 200 at this point.
Well, I think 3 of you can, so maybe it's.
No, I want a
Like a
conversation.
majority.
No.
Listen, I don't even know the answer.
I just want,
We could look at Old Military Corridor and actually count areas where things could go.
I think most likely they go into South Lake. That would be in rural countryside.
well, my point is no, we don't have to be unanimous, but we can be of a similar mind. I mean, if you were to say, I'm just picking a number, if 3 of us agree on 200 and you say 195, at least we're of like mind. You know what I mean? If you say 120, then justify that. You know what I mean?
No, I'm okay with going a little bit higher. I just don't know if 200 is too high.
So rural countryside, we'll take new ones.
Yeah.
Yep.
So because I'm trying to picture where these 30 new ones would go. Like, what does it look like when, for unintended consequences or
Yes.
intended, where are they
The
going?
probabilities of what transpired, I get where you're going. That's why I'm preferring you.
And so I see them going into South Lake and into rural countryside, with South Lake being like probably all of like Beach Hill. And, and so that was like one area that I was like a little concerned about and thought maybe it could come back. Rural countryside, maybe not so much, as long as we take out Deerwood, because they're just bigger lots, so it's expensive. North Lake, no one can touch North Lake anyway.
Are you thinking 175 or 180? And then, depending on the reaction to the public, we can up it to 2 with the growth.
You're worried about saturating one area.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my thought. Okay, when you said 200, I wasn't totally against it. But when I initially picked a number, it was 190.
Right.
190.
190. And as Rick said, even at 200, it may take 10 years to get there. So I think if you're happier a little bit less,
Would,
I'm happy with 190.
with even 20 less, rule out Beach Hill not being saturated, I guess that's,
Yeah.
maybe they should start a.
The only other thing that could happen, and I don't know what the advantage of it, I have to think about what the advantage would be, is, but like, remember when we announced the moratorium and there was a rush on, not a huge rush on permits, mostly it was people just renewing, but there was a little bit of a rush.
There
on
was a little bit of a rush.
But in the end, it did mostly be people who were renewing, like, let's say we were to say, all right, we're gonna cap it at 1, or not 190 or 200, whatever, I do think that we might see that fill really quickly, but with people who aren't actually renting and just wanna physically hold the permit. And so I will tell you that other places, we don't have, this is like a whole rabbit hole, but the other places that do have caps, you have to demonstrate that you rent at least 30 days a year, because they don't want people holding permits that aren't actually contributing to the economy of the short-term rental economy. So that's something to think about. Like, if we did see that, we might want to try and figure out how to ask them to show that demonstrate that they are renting at least 30 days. If we all of a sudden say, well, we have plenty of permits, like, why are the people saying that there's no place to stay, or there's no availability, or something like that? Something to keep in
I
mind.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Tell me this about Beach Hill, because I know that's a concern. What's the village's stance? Is that an area you're cutting out? Because that's a 50-50 deal.
Yesterday was a bit of a whirlwind, and I don't know, I was just,
Was that
I get
area
this.
addressed?
What's that?
Was that area addressed?
It's hard because it kind of jumped from place to place.
Okay.
And then it would be, hey, let's think about this. Oh, we're on this. But then it'd be like, oh, we can't do that. And then the conversation would come up again. So I was just kind of,
Okay.
it was really hard
Nothing
for me.
decisive.
Was it me, or it was just hard to track sometimes?
I feel like the meeting last week, there were at least a couple members who said, hey, because it is half town, half village, let's ask the town what they're doing and kind of do what they're going to do. And then at a village meeting, Chris Grant, who was there representing the Beach Hill HOA, already asked him, what do you want for your Beach Hill neighborhood? And he said, we, the HOA and the residents there, we want to be able to rent. So that was the comment made.
So then,
'Cause, yeah,
so then we are backing that idea with our direction.
And that's just your previous, I think that's a great idea, that somebody monitor usage. And that perhaps Monday morning conversation, I'm sure that's in your notes.
So that's another
Discuss.
component, back
Right.
to enforcement now, like, what's the mechanism?
Well, they renew their permit, you say, no, thank you, you didn't rent it all last year.
Yeah.
What would they have to produce, the number of days?
Again, it could just be an affidavit, or it could be they have to submit their
Rental
rental records. that says-
Or we massage that out of the hardware for the program,
Yeah.
right?
If it's possible.
Yeah, there were talks about village keeping the 90 nights, which was contrary to like what Mike and Darcy have recommended, because that's the one major component that it's extremely difficult to monitor and to regulate. So that was just,
But if it's like in their benefit, I think it's much easier. Like if you say, show me your records that you at least rented 30 nights, I think more people would be like willing to like.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, when we dive into the village, it gets a little.
Okay. Darcy, any last minute concerns that we didn't cover?
No, I don't think so.
Tabling the cat for now.
I get that. Yeah.
Uh,
Can we do a range as a tentative and then talk to Mark, see what's reasonable?
Well, I don't think that's a legality thing. No, it's our number.
Or maybe his recommendation.
I'll tell you
I don't
this,
want
I
you
don't
to
think
do.
they'll even recommend a recommendation.
Oh, I know one other thing that came up at the village meeting. They heard that you guys were thinking of extending the moratorium just for the administrative
Yeah.
process for 30 days. They're talking 60 days.
Because if you can get it done in 45. and then
Exactly. They
just have
said, you know what, we might as well go longer because then if it's done sooner, we could rescind it. But why have to extend it twice?
And that's one
Well-
part too, how long does it take to get it?
So I was just thinking that I should add that into that document, because we're gonna make this document public, right?
Yeah,
That we're considering.
And the bit too, right, about the county having to sign off and just like the
Right.
timing of when their
before you
meetings
add that
are.
though, I want to know, are we bound by a moratorium if we have our direction picked? And all we're worried about is the administrative acts.
Yeah, because there's gonna be no law to enforce. You're gonna revert back to the old law, which is not what we wanna do.
Right.
Right.
I don't agree with 2 months. I'll tell you that right
Yeah, I
now.
think we.
Because we go into a budget session and our lives turn overnight. It's time to tackle this and get
I
it
think
done.
we're further along.
And they have a conversation about, there's a thought about having a joint public hearing, but then the conversation moved towards not, because you would have, there's some variances between the two. And it would be
Exactly.
confusing for the village residents showing up, and then maybe the majority would be town residents showing up, because there's more numbers
It-
outside.
Oh
So
my God, it
going
would
different-
turn the clock back 2 years.
Yeah, so they were thinking that maybe just going two different, and then we just attend it, sit in what you're, see what you're thinking,
Sure.
and vice versa, yeah.
So back to the cap is 190, the new,
So
I'm not against, because it can be addressed again
Yeah,
this
that's
time
right.
next year.
are you okay with going that way from 200 to 190?
Yes.
190?
Listen,
Beverly says one of the alcohol or.
190?
the more important part is our drawing a line in the sand and ending new permits. That's how we will be assessed.
Right, but we're setting a cap, so 190,
Yeah,
190.
and you'll be amazed at how long it will take us
So
to.
that's Rick, why not? I think so too.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, like what I said, where when we, like the same thing with the moratorium, we had a rush, we would just have permits to get permits.
In the first year might be painful that way, because
Yeah, it might be, but I mean,
Do we want to add it, do we want to make the amendment, how we will enforce it, we don't know yet, but do we want to make the amendment that you must rent at least 30 days?
yeah,
but that puts the people that are right now on 14 days.
Yeah,
So do we want, you have to at least rent 14 days?
I say no.
I say we put something on it.
I say no, let's assess it.
to see if it's a problem.
But how do you assess it if you're,
But we're writing it now.
everybody renewing their permit will have to show their rental log?
We can go in and look
Or
at
an affidavit.
calendars and stuff.
Or an affidavit, like you said, an affidavit.
Yeah, but
or
you need
records.
that in the law.
Right, that's the thing, see,
You
we've got
can't
to,
do that without it being in the law.
yeah, we've got to say something. And if people are gonna come in and, yes, we get the permit dollars, but we don't get there's no occupancy
And,
tax.
and
there's
the
nothing.
events are limited.
Would you pay
Right.
$600 to $1,000 to only rent 30 days?
Some people will.
Well, our 14 day or lessers are gonna have to.
Yeah.
That's like really the only time. they're
So
gonna-
I agree that, we had said 13, you have to rent at least 14 days.
Obviously, it's been a problem in other places because almost every place has that requirement
Okay.
because people, I think, we're just holding permits to hold them.
Yeah, and again, we get the permit fee, but that's all we get.
So with increased cost of permit, and you would really have to decide this is something that you'd want to do.
Is 30 a number that's
No, I think
accepted?
they're
I think we can start out with 14.
14.
That way
That way
we
the
address the
people-
lowest end people.
Right, the people that in the
And then
past
if we
have had
need
that
to
14.
amend those number? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if we're hearing from Bruce, like there's not enough room for Ironman, there's not,
Right.
like, if we're hearing pushback from people that there's not enough
Okay.
accommodations, then we say, all right, guys, you gotta rent 30 days.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everyone has to demonstrate they rent 30 days because we don't have enough accommodations for people.
That's right.
Okay.
So we'll start at 14.
14 is good.
Okay, our time allotment is up.
Uh,
I'll take a motion to adjourn
So we'll
by Jason, second. Nick, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. I hope it was worth your time sitting here, Wayne.
Absolutely.
Per calendar year or per permit?
I wrote the calendar, yeah.
We didn't touch that. I don't- It did?
Never turned that.
I've got to do one. Big red color one.
3 hour capacity.